Just wait till your channel, like all other music channels, are flagged for COPPA and then fined by the FTC for $42,000. Yep, that's right, $42,000 per video, all caps. Music falls under the new COPP rules, and your comments, ads, and your livelihood will vanish. It starts December 10th, and by January or February, YouTube will be a desert island of trash. Mark my words. That's a strong statement.
Don't invite anybody like that on the podcast, man.
Peace, what's going down? It is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast, episode number 23. My name is DJ Payne1. His name is Dame Ritter. It is Black Friday as we record this, but when this drops, it will no longer be Black Friday. It'll be Cyber Monday. So, Dame, you want to touch on all that before he does? Shout out to all of our listeners. Shout out to everyone on Stitcher, everyone on AudioMac, everybody on Spotify, and, of course, everybody on my YouTube channel. MusicEntrepreneurClub.com is the website. We are planning a tour. We're planning a whole bunch of stuff, so stay abreast, but also join us because all the topics we cover here, we go really deeply into depth on our regular sessions. We bring in experts, we collaborate, we co-conspire, and so forth with all of our members. It's an intimate community, probably smaller than you would think. We get a lot done. Love to see you join.
Yeah, man, today is Black Friday. I put a Black Friday video on Instagram yesterday on our Instagram because, what I tell artists is, like, as an artist, you're essentially managing like 5 businesses in one as an independent artist when you talk about your music, touring, publishing, merchandise, etc. So for Black Friday, it's a great opportunity to make more money with your merch than you normally do because people are in the mode to spend money. And I literally have seen independent artists make over $100,000 in this weekend alone. So when Black Friday rolls around, hopefully weeks or maybe months in advance, you're planning and you're figuring out
names or no?
Yeah, well, Fora is one of them. Before he signed to Atlantic, he makes a ton of money with his merch. And obviously it's not just because of Black Friday. He has spent time building up his Yours Truly brand over the past, 4 or 5 years. He's a successful artist, and so he was doing that before he signed to Warner. I believe he signed, and I think he's out of his deal now, but. Long story short, it's a great opportunity to make a lot of money because people are in buying mode. So you have to take off your artist hat, put on your retailer hat, and understand kind of the strategy that you have or that you're going to need in place, right? You're going to need more inventory in stock. You're going to need to understand your promotions and deals. You're probably going to need to take on more customer service emails than normal. You just need to plan your operations for more business if you have, a solid merch line. So there's a great opportunity that weekend. And if you missed this weekend, Black Friday is probably the biggest weekend for sales, but there are always holidays and Labor Day, Memorial Day. Like, you need to be prepared for that stuff. Your site needs to be prepared for that stuff. So hopefully you develop like a cool merch operation. You got a cool brand and you're prepared for these sales because you can make a lot of money. So for people that missed it or for people that haven't built their brand yet, think about it for next year as you're putting the pieces together to, put your merch in place, over the next 12 months. It's a big opportunity.
What types of platforms are you seeing these successful artists use for their merchandising? Are they drop shipping? Are they using Squarespace? What are they using?
So, you're going to make you have the dropship companies like Printify and Printful, but as you sell more merchandise, you're going to make more money bringing that operation in-house and figuring out, how to do it effectively and efficiently, or using a fulfillment company. You're going to make more money than off Printify or Printful. And for people that don't know, Printify and Printful are companies where you can just upload your design, and then when somebody buys a shirt, they make it, they ship it out, and then they send you a percentage of the proceeds, and they're going to send you a smaller percent. You'd make a smaller percentage doing that than you would kind of making the shirt on your own and shipping it out. But it obviously there's no inventory risk. You don't have to put up the money. It's just you're responsible for marketing. And I guess the only other downside of that would also be there's typically a little lack of quality than you can go out and get on your own. I've seen, Printfy and Printful, they don't have the best quality. It works, it's not terrible, but you can step up the quality when you do it yourself. So so the MEC, we weren't prepared for Black Friday, so we're kind of not even taking our own advice. We don't have any Black Friday deals today. However,
oh yeah, we do. I said anybody who buys more than 3 hats gets a free 4K flat screen. I didn't say that. Please don't go buy 3 hats.
But my thing is, like, I feel like our platform is always a Black Friday deal because it's only $13 a month for great information, great access to people every single week, great conversations, knowledge. So we're offering something that is of super value every single day. We don't need a Black Friday deal. I'm just saying that because we missed it. We should have had a Black Friday deal. Maybe we'll put out a coupon code like going forward for our blog listeners, just like for a month free for people that haven't attended our live sessions. We're gonna set that up next week. Yeah. We're gonna have a coupon code specifically for our our podcast listeners. So we'll set that up. I'll put a reminder to set that up for all of our podcast listeners.
You said earlier, I think you used the term effective merch or an effective merch line.
Yeah.
What does that look like to you? What have you seen with these artists who have these highly successful merchandise lines? Because honestly, a lot of artists are scared to tour because of the financial uncertainty of a tour. And granted, tours are just financially uncertain, period, especially at a certain level. Not right. If you're Jay-Z or somebody, you're signed to a big company, you're getting guarantees. But if you're an unsigned artist, it's your first, second, or third tour. For me, in that position, when I've toured with Soul, merchandise has saved us. And so it's really this necessary component to a tour. That being said, what have you seen in the inventory that's made it so effective?
So the most successful artists with merch have really done a good job building a community, like a sense of community amongst their fans. And their brand is solid, their messaging is solid. And that messaging is represented in their merch, but it's also, represented in how they interact with people online. It's represented in their music. So with Fora specifically, his Yours Truly brand, he did a very good job at branding himself and his merch. And I think that was the name of his, even though he didn't sign anybody, I think it was the name of his record label too. It was just very present in everything that he did, and his fans really gravitated to his messaging. And then it looked good to his fans. I think he designed stuff that, his fans would really want and love. So I think he just did a really great job all the way around. But that sense of community is something that I think really, really brings it home and it takes it to another level. So it's deeper than just coming. Sometimes you can make one design and it just hits. I think I saw there was a piece that, or 2 Chainz with the ugly Christmas sweater. It was just one piece that did really well, and he made millions of dollars. But he's 2 Chainz. He has a platform. But sometimes the designs can just hit, and maybe you get your Facebook, your ads, your strategy popping, and then it just, maybe just a design goes viral.
Yeah, I've seen artists with better merchandise with their apparel than with their music.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, I don't know if Fora was an example of this because his music kind of kept pace with his apparel, but it's possible that, your brand as a clothing line, like, does better than your music at first. And I think that's okay. There's a cat named Sherrod Can't Sing out of Atlanta, and he runs a clothing line called God is Dope. And God is Dope has been very successful, and now he's using that as a platform to kind of, get his music going. So, and I know I spoke to some artists that said that they would be mad at that, right? Like, oh, I'm an artist. I'm not trying to sell merch. But I'm like, yo, whatever pops off first, you better take advantage of it. Use that money and that platform to invest in your music. That's nothing to be mad at. You might find that you have a skill in graphic design, or just, manufacturing of clothes, or just branding. And, that becomes the driver of your business. It's possible.
I don't understand people.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, if you missed this Black Friday, man, next year, hopefully you built a brand that's meaningful and dope, and you got some, dope merch, and you set up your operations accordingly.
Cool. What's next? What do you want to talk about?
So there was an exchange between Taz Taylor and Z, who was the editor in chief over at DJ Booth. Shout out DJ Booth. They probably the last hip hop site that actually puts time and effort into what they're writing. They're always dropping pieces that I think artists should read. It's very educational. So shout out to them. DJ Booth is super solid. But Z had an exchange with Taz Taylor. I'm not familiar with Taz Taylor. I know he does well as a producer. I think he started out doing like really well selling beats online, and now he, gets a lot of placements and has a management company. But anyway, it started out with Taz Taylor saying, I have 15 producers signed to me and manage close to 25 people on a daily basis. There's no limit. And then Z responded, this is professional negligence. You cannot be a good manager to 25 people on a daily basis. Management firms have teams of people, and even they struggle to handle a roster of clients. There is a limit to how many clients you can be a good manager for. And then Taz responded, I manage all 15 of my producers with at Birdman Zoe. I have 6 artists signed to Internet Money. Keep that energy. Well, I don't even want to say the drama piece of it. So I just kind of went back and forth. But the crux of the conversation was, Taz saying that he manages 25 people, Z saying there is a limit to how many people you can manage. So I wanted to talk about that, and maybe after that talk, because I think that's one of the things that you should understand before you bring on a manager, is what does their current workload look like? Are they going to have the time to give you the attention that you need as a young up and coming artist? That is definitely one of the things that you need to understand before you sign on to a management team or bring on a manager. So do you have any initial thoughts from that?
We talked about management, man. I don't even want to manage one person. However, I know Birdman personally, and so I don't see him putting himself in a position where he's over capacity. But that being said, managing producers, it's tough to manage. Period.
Is it easier to manage a producer than an artist? We are artists. Producers to funk. Yes, but for the sake of this conversation, so people understand the distinction,
I use the term recording artist personally.
Okay, recording artist and producer. Is it easier? Because I've never necessarily we signed producers to Funk Volume, but we didn't. I guess they kind of managed them, but I would think that managing a producer, unless they toured, unless they had a brand where they had merch and they had sponsorship deals and all that stuff coming in that the recording artist did, I would imagine it would take a little less time.
I would think so too, and especially at that level of producer, they're probably pretty self-motivated, self-managed. I don't want to assume anything about anybody, but I would imagine
So as a producer, and say you brought on a manager, like what would your expectations of that manager be? Like what would he or she do for you that you would expect?
They would connect the dots with regards to any business I might have, communicate with the lawyers, communicate with the label, negotiate on my behalf, making sure I'm making the best decisions. Basically managing whatever situation I get for myself. Obviously, a lot of managers go above and beyond that. Some managers A&R, some managers network quite a bit. I think all managers network quite a bit, but
It should.
they should. And some managers, especially managers of producers, are actively seeking out additional opportunities for those producers. So it all depends. I've had managers do all of that and more. And so a good manager is a huge asset. I know we've gotten into an argument about whether or not you need a manager. The fact remains, a good manager is hard to find, and they are an asset. So if you have a good manager that can do all that for you, then obviously play your part. That's my issue with management. If the recording artist or the creative in general just feels like their role is to be creative and nothing else, and that everything else needs to be done by the manager.
But as a producer, like at what point would you advise a producer to get a manager? Because we have a decent amount of producers that listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
you know what, and people can go back to my channel and watch the conversation I had with Birdman. So his point was when you have something to manage, and I think that applies to, and you've disagreed.
but that's the question though. Like, what does that
When
what
you
does
have
that
something
mean?
to manage, to me it means when you have a situation in front of you related to your music career that is unmanageable by you, and you need someone to come in and coordinate it. You need someone to assist you with it. You basically just need someone to manage a situation, and you know that additional situations such as this one are going to come up. I mean, if you're a first time producer, not a first time producer, but a producer who's getting their first placement, and you don't know what the hell to do. I think it was it was Carl Folks that was on a couple of weeks ago with us, who said you might be able to get away with just having a lawyer for the first couple of times, but eventually you're going to need a manager if that continues. And yeah, you're going to, because you do want to focus as much on the creative side as possible, and you don't want to be the person who's negotiating on their own behalf in this
Right.
business.
Right.
So you have the management, you have the lawyer, you're good.
And and not to scare somebody into management, that's the last thing we want to do. But it when legit companies or labels or what have you like are negotiating directly with an artist, I think I think they see an
Oh
opportunity
yeah.
here. They see that, this person's probably a novice and we can probably get away with some things here and there because he or she doesn't have a manager. They're trying to represent themselves. So the assumption is they're more green. So okay, so going back to the Taz and the DJZ exchange, 25 is a lot. And when they went back and forth, like it didn't seem like he was managing 25 recording artists and producers, but he said that it was 15 producers. He specifically said 15 producers, and then he said 6 recording artists were signed to Internet Money. And I'm assuming that 6 were being managed as well. So it's at least 21. That's a shitload of people to manage, even with a partner. To me, with my experience as a manager, I managed all the guys on Funk Volume. So it was like 4, and 3 of them were pretty active all the time. And that definitely was a full-time job. And I had an assistant. Hop had an assistant.
That was HS4.
Yeah. So, and then again, we had the producers sign, but we didn't. I guess we did the same thing as a man. We tried to get them placements and things like that.
How many
but
producers was it? 2 or more than that?
4.
So 8 total. you
Yeah.
manage.
But I wouldn't even necessarily say that because they weren't all like tapped in. I would say Kato was the most active. Like he wanted to do merch and his own projects and stuff like that. We helped facilitate that stuff. Um, but 25 is a shitload. Like if there's, I could definitely say this for sure, even without understanding like Taz Taylor's operations, right? So if even two people, like a management team of two people, said that they were managing 25 people active producers and recording artists, and I was about to sign with them, I wouldn't. Like that that's just too much. They don't have that much time in the day unless they have a staff of, you know, at least five other people that are willing, that know it almost as much as them and can help out on the ground, right? Because just imagine you're managing 25 people. Let's say they all want to tour in March, like, or they all want to put out merch, or they all want Black Friday sales. Like that's 25 websites, 25, different brands. That's just too much unless you have a team of people. That's crazy. So there definitely is a limit to how many people you can manage successfully and give. And I would assume that a lot of these guys or girls are like up and coming, so they need more. They might have more questions. They need more support to really get momentum going. It's not more just high level strategic conversations. Like it's more, on the ground, like stuff we need to really do to get some momentum. So when you're selecting a manager, that's definitely one thing you need to understand. One is, what does this manager currently have on their plate, right? And Payne, I don't know if you have anything to add to what I just talked about, but maybe we can talk about like what are the other things that you should look for in a manager when you're selecting, or when you think you're ready for management. I don't know how Taz Taylor's set up. I don't know if it's just him in Birdman, or is it other people? Are there assistants involved? Like, I know that he has a pretty cool operation like set up creatively, like here in Hollywood. That's to the extent I know, Taz. I just know he's done really well as a producer. He's brought on some people under him that have done well. Um, you know, but how fast can that grow and how sustainable is that? It's tough because he's relative. How long has he been like on like doing really well? Has it been a significant amount of years, or is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. So you don't have any comments on that exchange?
I turned the radio the other day. I turned it on. It said "Internet Money" on the rhythmic station in my
Nice.
city. Rhythmic. I was like, damn, man, producers are winning.
Dope.
I never thought I would see that. So that's cool.
Cool. That's the name of his label,
Yep.
Internet Money. Okay. I guess that's kind of dope. That actually is, very on brand if that's how you started, like selling hella beats, just online. All right. Well, we'll get into your topic, but just to kind of summarize, like out of this exchange, there definitely is a limit to how many people you can manage effectively, and that is something that you should try to find out before you bring on a manager, because you're going to need, a decent amount of that person's time and attention. And if that person's managing 25 people, like I said, just think about it. What if everybody wanted to put out a project that month? That means, if 25 people wanted to put out a project in the same month, that means that manager would need to call on their contacts to help support that project like 25 times, have that conversation 25 times.
Yeah, but wouldn't a good manager not allow that? I mean, if you're part of I guess it's different. I would imagine it would be different if you were just a manager, just managing, any number of different artists who are just scattered around the world. However, in your situation, for example, with Funk Volume, if all four artists wanted to release an album the same week, you would probably advise against that, right?
No, for four and with our brand, like to be honest with you, like that might actually be a good like that could be a good thing if you have like because like you could strategize in a way where they complement each other and it's just like a full like funk volume takeover that weekend and that might bring more press with like three or four projects
but
and I'm
not
not
5 or 6.
right
That's probably too much.
but it's definitely going to diminish as you add like people are going to get less
Right.
attention than they probably should have. It'll diminish at a certain point, but that would have been dope to do maybe one time, because that would have like added to the storyline or changed the storyline up, made it more interesting. And I know that Tech Nine and Chris Calico just dropped a project on the same day, like last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure how well that was planned or how successful that was. But it really just goes back to kind of the strategy, the plan and like your brand. Because sometimes that's going to take resources away from an artist that would on their own like deserve more attention. But I could also see how it could actually add to the story and bring more attention and be a 2 + 2 = 5 situation.
Right.
So it just depends.
Yeah, my concern with just people wanting management has always been, and this is why I don't want to keep talking about it, just because I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. But it's always been that when I've heard artists want managers, it's because they literally had done none of the groundwork themselves, and they just wanted someone to do it all for them. And it's anything from I want to put an album out, or hey, I want to do music, but I need a manager first, to all right, I did a bunch of music. I don't like doing social media. I need someone to do that for me. Or, hey, I got an album coming out, but I need someone to invest in it. I need to find a manager. To me, all of those reasons are terrible reasons to seek out a manager. And they're also just going to delay. One, they're going to delay your music career because you're probably not going to find a manager that's willing to do any of those things for you. And two, if you find a manager that says yes to any of those tasks, they're probably not good managers. And then you just shot yourself in the foot because you've tied yourself to a person who doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, and like when people have that mind frame, like there's just not a lot of good managers walking around looking for artists to manage, right?
Now, and
like,
if they are, be careful, because it's like if you. I was going to use a terrible comparison. Never mind. Now, if you're out at a club and there are just beautiful, physically attractive people walking around just looking for someone to pick up, it doesn't really work that way. You got to think that person's out to harvest your organs, and be careful.
All right, nah, but there isn't that many. Like, I don't really know any. Out of the solid managers that I know, they don't go around just like looking for. They're already busy, and they kind of need to be convinced, like over time, right? To take on something new, and you convince them by essentially putting in the work yourself and showing that you have something that can grow into something a lot bigger with their help and support. If you do get a manager like in the beginning stages, you're probably that person's just gonna have to be committed to learning what a manager does and like grow into that role. So they're just gonna have to, learn along with you. Hopefully, all you guys are learning the business. And then that manager is just dedicated to being an actual manager and learning that role.
And I think there's value in that, growing along with the manager. Just be careful. Obviously, don't just. You see people jump from manager to manager to manager to manager, and it's just the fact of the matter is most people who do that are putting way too much on their managers, and they're not self-directed enough. Look, I'm scared to death to manage people. If I could probably see a scenario in which I saw a talented, self-directed artist with a ton of groundwork already underneath them that they've already done, and look at them and say, okay, cool, I have a vision for you. I know I could assist. Let's figure something out. But a lot of people have these, they know what talent is, and they want to work with somebody based on talent alone. And then that whole development component is what destroys the relationship.
Man. Last thing on management, like what I see is, especially the people that have been successful as managers, like they get to a certain point, and because they've been successful, because they're smart, because they've, pretty well networked within the industry, like they go off and do other things because management is tough and it's not always worth your time depending on who you're working with. Like it's like the really smart people know that getting 20%, they can probably do something else and make more money than making 20%, unless you're, I guess managing somebody like Drake or somebody like that. It's just not worth the headache. At least as definitely how I see it. It's like, I could do so many other things than like have these headaches with artists for 20% of what they're making. Why would I do that if it's going to be a headache, unless it's going to be a really big artist? So anyway, Payne, we can get to your topic before we close things out.
All right, let's end on a positive note. Everyone's music career is about to be destroyed. This is what I've been reading all over the internet. Actually, let me pull up a comment. I invited this guy on the podcast, actually. He said, his name is Music Factory Studios. Just wait till your channel, like all other music channels, are flagged for COPPA and then fined by the FTC for $42,000. Yep, that's right, $42,000 per video, all caps. Music falls under the new COPP rules, and your comments, ads, and your livelihood will vanish. It starts December 10th, and by January or February, YouTube will be a desert island of trash. Mark my words. A little alarmist, a little dramatic, but I started looking into things after I saw that comment. I invited the guy on the podcast to say, hey, if you are well versed in the COPPA, which is the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, if you're well versed in that act, come on and talk about it, because what you're saying is not. This isn't me deducing anything from your statement. Your statement is my YouTube channel, my livelihood, my music career will basically be destroyed, along with, potentially millions of others. That's a strong statement.
Don't invite anybody like that on the podcast, Payne.
Well, he didn't respond. It was more of a challenge of, hey, are you an expert on this? If you are, come on. But the situation is, and I don't know how you're insulated from this, because everywhere I turn, whether it's YouTube, whether it's social media, I'm seeing people talk about this incoming COPPA law that's going to absolutely decimate the careers in the creative world on YouTube. And I watched a bunch of these videos, read some articles, watched part of the FTC's announcement, and what I've gathered is that, so YouTube actually violated this law. Apparently COPPA, that law is not new. But for decades, ever since YouTube started, I guess, or until they started monetizing videos, obviously there are a lot of videos on YouTube that are targeted towards children under the age of 13, minors. Minors aren't allowed to be advertised to, I guess, in the way that YouTube is collecting their data and targeting certain advertisements towards them specifically. And that's where the law was violated by YouTube. And YouTube basically gave companies access to minors to sell products to them. That was the violation. They paid millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in fines because of violating that law. And now their new solution is to update their terms and basically bury any video that's marked as made for children, which is obviously terrible for the content creators who have based their entire YouTube career or brand business, whatever, on marketing video content to minors, unknowingly breaking the law in doing so. Really, it's the platform that's breaking the law, though, because the individual creators weren't knowingly violating some kind of child protection act, right? And then obviously watching the FTC representative speak, and he literally, it's on video. He said this will be like shooting fish in a barrel, where YouTube is the barrel and creators are the fish, because they have all of these, the same way that Content ID can catch your content like this. If you're using a copyrighted beat or a copyrighted song, they're going to be able to do the same thing for content created for children. And it's really vague. And obviously, YouTube is probably scared to death of getting fined, and they don't want to. So they're doing everything to put the onus on creators rather than on themselves with regard to any future litigation. That's how it seems to me.
Yeah, I don't see why there's that big of a concern. Like to me, I know that they're getting more strict because I manage some comedians and actors that do sketches, and I know that YouTube has gotten more strict in terms of flagging videos that have cussing in them, right? So demonetizing those videos. So they need to be aware of stuff like that. So they have the option to, keep it in there and keep the art like how they wanted it, or they have the option to like bleep the cuss words, right? But they never made content for children. It's not like, they were making Sesame Street videos and then all
cussing in it.
And then all of a sudden, like with a mix of like Sesame Street videos with like a mix of like their normal sketches with the N-word and like hella cussing. Like they never did that. Their content's been consistent, and I think the advertisers that advertise on their page, like they know what that content is, right? So I don't see how this is going to be affected. Like I was literally at Full Screen with Minx last week, and they talked about it. And maybe this is why I'm not alarmed by it. Like they talked about it. They basically were just like, make sure you check the box that says this is not for children, and that was like the extent of the conversation. And maybe that's why I'm not alarmed by it, because like Full Screen is probably, if not the biggest, one of the biggest, multi-channel networks. And if they're not concerned, then I'm not concerned, because their business is based off a percentage of our channels.
Yeah, my network hasn't really done much beyond just sent a instructional guide on how to comply with COPPA. I'm seeing a lot of people claim that COPPA will not spare you if you're marking that checkbox on your videos. I couldn't actually, and maybe I was just overwhelmed with all the videos, but I couldn't actually figure out why they were saying that. What specifically about the act is going to affect somebody like me who uploads, these blogs, these podcasts aren't for kids. My videos aren't for kids. I just I checked my channel. So basically my entire channel I marked as not for kids. So beyond that, apparently my channel will still be affected. And it might be because of this portion of the new YouTube terms of service that people are talking about, which is that there's a section that says if YouTube believes your content is no longer commercially viable, they can terminate your access to the platform and to Google services. And, basically people are afraid of having their content deleted or their access restricted because their content's no longer viable to YouTube's advertisers. It's not safe enough to be monetized. But you already, so here's the interesting part of this. Number one, YouTube and Google always have been able to delete you for whatever reason, demonetize you for whatever reason. That's just how social media works. We had that conversation last time about all the algorithmic changes on Instagram. They can do whatever the hell they want. You can complain, you can kick up dust, you can raise hell, but they're still going to be able to do whatever, whether it's good for you as an individual or good for the community and the user base. Doesn't matter. It's their company. They're going to do it. It just seems that they've changed the language of the terms of service to be plainer. Now, that being said, you also noted, Dame, that and I've been seeing this happen even before the COPPA stuff was announced. Creators were being demonetized for stuff like, cursing in their videos or adding certain words in video titles that triggered YouTube's automatic demonetization flagging service, whatever the hell it is, however they determine that stuff. So it just seems like more of the same, unless you're making, toy unboxing videos or something, and then you might really be in trouble. I don't know how that works specifically, because I don't know any creatives in that world, any content creators in the world of kid specific content. But what's your takeaway from all this?
I mean, what I told Minx is like, you just need to be mindful, because they are being more strict around what can be monetized and what can't be monetized. And to us, that was just like the only takeaway. Like I'm not really concerned. Like the cat that you mentioned in the beginning, who was the alarmist, saying that YouTube, I'm not sure if this was the direct quote, but like going to be a dried up desert or something like that. It's like, YouTube wouldn't let that. I just don't believe YouTube would let that happen. Like, YouTube is so big, and I think it's always gonna have. I mean, there might be some other competitors that rise up and eventually challenge YouTube, but they
haven't yet. I'm waiting for that day.
But YouTube. I mean, Facebook is making a decent effort, but I guess that it's not a little guy, right? It's still a behemoth of a company. I'm gonna have the same issues essentially, but yeah, just not concerned about that right now. But we're always seeking to diversify our revenue streams, right? Like, so when I work with Big Jaw and Minx, obviously they're making most of their money on like YouTube and Facebook, but we're actively, like, we want to always diversify our revenue streams. So no matter what happens on these platforms, we can protect their careers, right? So that's like getting their merch going, developing their own app, trying to find opportunities for them in television, film, producing their own films. Like, that's how we should always be thinking. We should never be like dependent 100% on any of these platforms. We should always be thinking about ways to, diversify our revenue stream, so that if something does really end up drying YouTube up, you're not broke, and you're not, your business doesn't just have to fold.
And that's what we've always said. Don't trust social media. Don't put all your eggs in that basket. However, I do really feel for the content creators who are scared to death, especially the content creators that have targeted kids for the last 10 years without meaning to break the law, and all of a sudden the rug's being pulled out from under them because YouTube has been their sole source of income. Some of them were making a lot of money. Some of them were making 6-7 figures just doing that. So
but I still wouldn't understand. I don't want to keep this conversation going, but even if they were doing that, wouldn't the solution for them be to mark their channel as content for kids and continue doing the same thing? Like, what?
Yeah. Well, the issue is that YouTube released a statement saying that if your content is marked as for kids, they can no longer process its metadata in the same way, which means your videos will not show up in searches. They will no longer be monetized, because monetized videos targeting kids equals data collection, which is in direct violation of the COPPA. So basically, their livelihood and their reach is being snatched from them at the same time.
Gotcha.
So I feel for them. But yeah, I don't want to keep talking about this. This is already a long ass episode. Shout out to everyone tuning in. Shout out to everybody who watches these and joins Music Entrepreneur Club at musicentrepreneurclub.com. And we appreciate all of you. Until next time, DJ Payne 1 and Dame Ritter saying peace.
Peace.